Okay, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and get started. It is 6 o'clock Tuesday, April 20th. This is the Rutland Board of Selectmen meeting. Hereby declare it open. FinCom, if you want to hold on a minute, I just have to run through our normal order of business, and then I'll defer to you to open as well, if that's okay with you, Karen. Okay. I see we have a quorum, and I see Aaliyah is now in the meeting. If at this point in the meeting, I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading of the open meeting recordings disclaimer.
So moved. Nichols.
I have a motion
Whitman seconds.
and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Stillings.
Stillings, aye.
Nichols.
Nichols, aye.
Whitman.
Whitman, aye.
City, aye. Motion carries unanimous. Skip did send along his condolences, but as many of you know, there is a conflict with the meetings tonight, so he is in conservation. But he did want me to pass that along to the board. That is the reason for his absence. All right, at this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Treasury warrant 21-W21 and payroll 21-PW21.
So moved.
Second, Stillings.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Stillings.
Stillings, aye.
Nichols.
Nichols, aye, excluding any COA wages or USDA payments.
Whitman.
Whitman, aye.
And City, aye. Motion carries unanimous. Okay, at this point in the meeting, I'll entertain motion for approval of meeting minutes from April 5th and April 14th, 2021. We can either approve them as a slate or individually, as the board may choose.
Motion to approve as a slate.
Second, Nichols.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Stillings.
Stillings, aye.
Nichols.
Nichols, aye.
Whitman.
Whitman, aye.
And City, aye. Motion carries unanimous. At this point in the meeting, I'd like to invite anyone that is here for public comment. Please use the hand raise tool in your Zoom feature, and we will let you in the meeting. Is there anyone here for public comment? Okay, seeing none. If it's all right, we have a couple items to take out of order tonight, one of which involves FinCom. But there is an item that I would like to take first, if there are no objections. It's an item that came in to the board prior to us scheduling the meeting. I had it added today. I talked to Anita. If the board is amenable, we can take it up tonight. We have had, some of you might know, Nancy Nichols has been working really hard behind the scenes to address the needs of her, the folks that she serves in town. And I've been working pretty hard to try to get some projects moving over there through grant writing and other means. And we were able to, through several very generous individuals in town, secure a donation, which will allow for the complete and total renovation of the kitchen facility at the community center to serve our seniors, valued at between $50,000 and $75,000. So according to our new grants acceptance and procedures, in order for Nancy to move forward on that, we have to, as a board, vote to accept the donation. The individuals that are donating both materials and in-kind labor wish to remain anonymous, those two individuals. So I ask that we respect their anonymity. And it's something that's amazing for the town. And I did invite Nancy here tonight to also congratulate her and certainly extend that we appreciate all the hard work that she's doing. So before we take that vote, Nancy, would you like to say anything to the board?
Just thank you, Mitch, for all of your work, and to the people donating as well, and through the Grant for CARES Act and some money that we had raised before that last year. So I think it is a great opportunity. It'll give the center a nice new addition and motivation to maybe get some other things done. So I'm really very appreciative of the whole project.
Well, and we certainly know how hard your staff's been working between the Meals on Wheels and everything else during the pandemic. And in a normal year, in fact, that kitchen plays a vital role in public safety dinners and things like that. So certainly something that's great. So do we have any conversation from the board prior to voting? Jeff, go
I
ahead.
think it's great. Good work to you both, Mitch and Nancy, and the Meals on Wheels folks and everybody there. If you need a motion to add it to the agenda as a unintended last minute item, I'd make that motion.
Okay, I don't think we do, but I would, out of, I guess, courtesy, I would appreciate that, Jeff. So we have a motion to officially add it to the agenda. Do we have a second?
Whitman, second.
Any further discussion before adding it officially? All right, we'll have a roll call vote. Stillings,
Stillings, aye.
Nichols,
Nichols eye.
Whitman,
Whitman, I.
and Recity, aye. Motion carries unanimous. And now I'd ask for a motion to accept the donation on behalf of the town for the Council of Aging.
So moved on behalf of a grateful town.
Whitman, seconds. Thank you all.
We'll have any further discussion. We'll have a roll call vote. Stillings,
Stillings, aye.
Nichols,
Nichols eye with appreciation.
Whitman,
Whitman, I, with many thanks.
and Recity, aye. The motion carries unanimous. And I know the folks that did donate are probably watching tonight. So again, thank you so much. It's stuff like this that really moves you. And Nancy, again, you've been working your tail off this entire pandemic. So thank you and your staff on behalf of our board.
Well, thank you, and thank everybody for their continued support.
Great.
Keep up the good work, Nancy.
Thank you.
Okay. Also want to extend it. Ron did a site visit a couple times and helped us work through the logistics, so I don't want to leave him out either. So Ron, I know you're probably going to watch a repeat of this, so thank you for help stewarding this and pushing it forward. It's certainly appreciated. All right, that's taken out. I would like to take item 1 to 31, if there's no objections, out of order so we can invite FinCom in because we do have an item regarding a couple of things. For example, vote to sign town meeting warrant. I don't think we should do that until FinCom gets the chance to weigh in. So I'm going to take 1 to 31, that discussion out of order, if it's amenable to the board. And if so, Karen, I invite you to open up your meeting, and we certainly appreciate your patience.
All right, it is 6:08 on Tuesday, the 20th of April, and I am opening up the Finance Committee meeting.
Great. So go ahead, Karen.
You just want to jump right on in?
Yeah, I think just as a recap, in the fall, we had gotten together and gone through the articles to make sure both boards were on the same page. Excuse me. So I think if we just want to follow that similar format, what we can do is go through the warrant article by article quickly, so that I know FinCom's had a lot of late meetings. Maybe tonight there's the prospect of them getting out early and enjoying some of the weather. If that's amenable to you, Karen, I think that's maybe how we handle it.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So Article 1 is to hear the annual reports of town officers and committees. Does FinCom, I guess, how do you want to do this, Karen? You want to take votes for approval on your board, or how would you like to handle it?
Well, that was the thing. I'll just make the motions and then we'll get the Finance Committee to recommend it because you guys have placed most of these already. I think we just have 1 or 2 questions that have to change.
Okay.
All right.
Yep. So do you want me to read them first, or do you want to just go through by the numbers?
I can just go through and read them. It's fine. It'll make it faster for everybody because I figure you guys all have got other work to do. So I make the motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town vote favorably on Article 1, which is to hear the annual reports of the town officers and committees.
Second.
Okay. Now, any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Tommy? You have to unmute.
Aye.
Okay, Pete,
O'Malley, aye.
Ted,
Purcell, aye.
David,
Lucy, aye.
and I'm an aye, so we're favorable. Article 2, I know you guys on the select board have placed this. It needs to be removed after a conversation that I had with Dan. We're not using any free cash to fund this article. It's done with line item transfers, and we will not be ready for the town meeting to tell everyone where those are coming from. So those will be handled later in the fiscal year when line item transfers happen. So I don't know how you guys want to handle that.
I don't, there was a reason this was placed, and Ron had explained it at the prior meeting. The article itself indicates including line item transfers and or free cash. I'm hesitant to remove it at this point because it does allow the flexibility to do that. I had not talked to Dan specifically, but I know it's something Ron had done. So I don't think leaving it does any harm.
Okay, it's just that we will not have free cash. We are using all $120,000 of free cash to balance the budget. So there will be no free cash. It will need to be handled with line item transfers.
Right, which is also in the article.
Right, but we will not have those line item transfers ready for 2 weeks from now.
Okay. Leah,
Thank you. I have a question, Karen. You're confident that there will be enough money? I mean, I realize we don't have much of a choice, but you're confident that there will be enough from line item transfers to cover that deficit?
Ron is telling me that I need not be concerned that there will be enough money, but there's no other money to be had because we're using the 120 in free cash to fund the budget, so.
well, I mean,
Okay.
that's it. That's kind of the answer is we're gonna have to have enough money, right?
And my other comment is, I know in the past we've handled a lot of line item transfers individually in subsequent board meetings, kind of from town
Right.
meeting to the end of the fiscal year.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if I assume that that's how this would go, and we would just have a whole list of line items that it's coming out of to fund that. But I'm not 100% sure.
Yes, that's how the line items would handle. At the end of the year, there's usually a bunch of those that we have to handle. But Dan has assured me, I spoke with him, we will not have those available on that evening. So he was saying it is not necessary to have.
Okay. Well, I see Dan's on the call.
Mitch, if I can jump in.
Yeah, I can see you there, Dan. Welcome.
How you doing?
Good.
Yeah, so you're right, Mitch. It did afford us some additional flexibility if we left it with a free cash or even stabilization. But because will not be using those revenue sources at the May meeting, it's not going to be necessary because we're going to have to find the money in the budgets to move this money.
Okay, thank you, Dan, shedding some light onto that. So that being said, Karen, did you want to take a vote on that first, and then we can vote to remove if the board so chooses?
Well, I would say you guys vote to whether you're going to place it or not, and then we can give a recommendation because at this point.
Okay. All right. So having heard from Dan and Karen, I'll make the motion that we remove Article 2 from the warrant as it is not seemingly necessary.
Nichols, second.
Have any further discussion from our board? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Stillings,
Stallings, aye.
Nichols,
Nichols, aye.
Whitman,
Whitman, aye.
and Resity, aye. Motion carries unanimous. So Karen, I don't think you even have to recommend it then because it's not on the warrant anymore.
Precisely.
Okay. Continue on, Karen. Article 3.
I make the motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town vote favorably on Article 3, which is to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money to be transferred to the combined enterprise funds, reflecting enterprise appropriation articles flows to the general fund when the town voted to combine its separate water and sewer enterprise funds to one combined enterprise fund per Massachusetts Department of Revenue regulations, or take any action in relation thereto.
Second.
Any discussion?
Does it still say free cash on that item? Because on the draft I have, it says free cash.
This is free cash. This is the sum of money that's gonna go, that's in free cash that goes to the water and sewer enterprise funds. It's not truly free cash, but it's free cash.
Okay, I thought
Want me
when
to
you
jump
read
in
it,
again, Mitch?
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, the actual, the version that I was sent today by Anita, because she has some revisions, it does not indicate free cash in the article. Is that what we're looking at, Karen?
Go ahead, Dan.
Yes, it's definitely free cash, and it was certified when we moved to one enterprise fund. The state required us to move all of the assets, liabilities, fund balance from the enterprise funds to the general fund, and then we had to appropriate at a previous town meeting to one enterprise fund. But subsequently, any activity that was in that those two enterprise funds that existed at the time became part of the general fund. So in the free cash that was certified is the exact amount of money. It was free cash certified in the general fund, and it's the exact amount that belongs back to the enterprise funds. So it was as a result of the state requiring us to move all of that money to the general fund for free cash certification purposes. But it really belongs to the enterprise. It's their money. It's some of it is related to articles that have existed within the enterprise fund or voted from enterprise fund free cash. Free cash is what it should read. That's correct.
It's in the description. I see it in the description, so that should cover it. It's fine.
Okay.
Karen, you made the motion, right?
Yeah. So any other discussion? Okay, I'm gonna take a roll call vote. Ted?
I'm sorry, I still have a question. I'm looking
Okay.
at a draft that says 4/5/21 on it. Is that the wrong draft?
He sent us new ones on 4/15.
Okay. I'm unprepared to vote on it then, sorry.
Okay. So Pete,
O'Malley, aye.
Tommy,
Charlotte, aye.
David,
Lucy, aye.
Narwhal, aye. It passes. Article 4, I make the motion that the Finance Committee recommend favorably on Article 4, which is to see if the town will vote to fix the salaries or compensation of elected town officers for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, in accordance with Section 108, Chapter 41 of the General Laws as amended, or take any action in relation thereto.
O'Malley, second.
Any discussion? And this article, Mitch and the Board of Selectmen, just want to let you know, will be subject to an override because there'll be a lot less funds to pay without the override.
Lyndon and then Leah.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I know it does say next to it, subject to the override, but why doesn't it say it in the body of the motion that it's contingent on approval? I have a concern about a lot of these budgets that doesn't directly tie it to the override, especially Article 10 with the school. Because if that passes and the override doesn't pass, I don't think it's clear that it's tied to the override. And in the past, we had that in the body of the motion. So I'm not quite sure how that's supposed to.
It's noted next to the article, Article 4. it's going to be,
Just because it says subject to that, is that, that's not part of the article, that's sufficient to tie it to the override? That's council's opinion?
excuse me. I'm not sure if this has been ratified by council.
I just want to clarify that because in the
Yeah.
past, we've always had it as part of the motion. So I want to be certain that it ties to the override, especially in the school motions, because I think we'll end up with a problem if it's not clearly stated.
Okay,
Thank you.
Leah.
Thank you. My question was, I had a couple questions. One was what Lyndon had just asked, if we needed to include in the motion, that language. And also, Karen, this might be a FinCom question. I thought, and I've been trying to listen to the FinCom meetings, but I thought some of the stipends, or salaries were going to be paid regardless of the override or not, or is all the salaries, because I think that this includes the town clerk's salary. And I didn't think that that salary, I know that amount might be changed, right? Is that true? And I'm just not sure how this would need to be broken out to show, and maybe that comes forward in the motions and not the article itself. That parts of it are, a majority of it is contingent on the override. There are parts that are not though. Or maybe I'm totally off base.
We did cut most of the stipends. And yes, there are some changes. I don't know, I was told, this is how it has to be read, how it has to be written by Ron. And yes, if we want to reinstate stipends and some more, COLAs and those kinds of things, we do have to pass the override.
Mitch, if I could just jump in here a little bit. We do have a call into KP Law to Lauren just to ask if we do need to add the override wording into the article versus just having it as an aside, to have it built in there, because I know these amounts would change, but if the override doesn't pass. So we're still waiting to hear back, I think, from Lauren, whether it has to be built in there and whether we have to show the amount that we want versus the amount that would pass if the override, or that we have to use if the override didn't pass.
I know, can we clarify? I mean, this article is just to allow the town to fix the salaries and compensation. And then in a future article, the budget articles, we actually go into the actual compensation. And that's where that stuff is gone through. I mean, this article seems procedural, right? I mean, is this something that we really have to expand on?
In reading, Mitch, if I may, in reading the motions for Article 4, it shows the different positions that are compensated and then the dollar amount. That's within the Article 4 motion itself. So I thought that for Article 4 that this was specifically the compensation and salaries for the elected officials.
That's
and
correct.
And then all the other budgetary stuff is in the subsequent, I don't know what, Article 5 maybe?
Article
but
5, yeah.
I'm not 100% sure though.
Okay, Lyndon.
No, I guess that clarifies, because I still had some questions like Leah, to make sure that the clerk's salary was separated from the stipends. I wasn't clear on that either, so.
Okay. So we can make a note, excuse me, to get clarification on that. And it sounds like Becky and Lauren is already looking at it. Okay. All right, any further discussion from the board? Karen?
Okay. All right, is there any discussion from the Finance Committee? Okay, I'm gonna take a roll call vote. Ted? We didn't hear you, Ted.
So
Okay. Pete?
O'Malley, aye.
Tommy?
Rochelle, aye.
David?
Lucy, aye.
And Narwhal, aye. Passes. Okay. Okay, I make the motion that the finance committee recommend the town vote favorable on Article 5, which is to see if the town will vote to raise such sums of money as may be necessary to defray the expenses of municipal departments for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, and to determine whether the town will appropriate money therefore to be provided by taxation or by appropriation from available funds or take any action in relation thereto.
O'Malley second.
Any discussion?
Hear me, right?
Go ahead, Leah.
I just wanted to make a comment. This is similar to the previous one, if we need to include the language of pending an override or anything in the motion. Just kind of a procedural thing, that it's a similar question to the one above with that language.
If I can comment, Mitch, I
Thanks.
think this is gonna be the override. It needs to be tied to it. I think the higher amount should be in this, subject to the override. If the override doesn't pass, we'll have the lower amount, but the piece we need to find out from Lauren is do we have to go back to another meeting if the override doesn't pass to fund the budget at the lower amounts? That's what we're waiting to hear from her, but it should be tied to the override.
And then,
Yeah, so Becky, I assume that it'll be across the board, and anyone tied to the override, if they say it needs to be in the language, we will just adjust all of the articles.
Correct. That's my understanding, yeah.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure that it's out there, that that's the understanding, so we can make sure going forward that that's it. Thank you.
yeah, I think too, we have to keep in mind, Lauren did a great job preparing the warrant and talking us through these issues last year. So I'm hoping this week they come back and everybody's kind of satisfied with the results. So thank you for bringing up the concerns. Karen, did you have you have a motion and a second, correct?
Yes, we do. I'm just gonna ask again if there's any further discussion. Okay, take a roll call vote. Ted?
Purcell, aye.
Pete?
O'Malley, aye.
Tommy?
Rochelle, aye.
Lucier?
You're aye.
Narwhal, aye. Passes. Okay. I make the motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town vote favorably on Article 6, which is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of money to defray the expenses of the Southern Worcester County Regional Vocational School Assessment for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, and to determine whether the town will appropriate money therefore to be provided by taxation or by appropriation from available funds or take any action in relation thereto.
O'Malley second.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Ted?
Purcell, aye.
Pete?
O'Malley, aye.
Tommy?
Rochelle, aye.
David?
Lucy, aye.
Narwhal, aye. It passes. Okay. I make the motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town vote favorably on Article 7, which is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of money to defray the expenses of the Wachusett Regional School District minimum local contribution for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, and to determine whether the town will appropriate money therefore to be provided by taxation or by appropriation from available funds or take any action in relation thereto.
O'Malley second.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay. Ted? We didn't hear you, Ted.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. Purcell, aye.
Okay.
O'Malley, aye.
Tommy,
Rochelle, I.
David,
Lucy,
and Narwhal, aye. It passes. Okay, I make the motion that the Finance Committee recommend favorably on Article 8, which is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of money to defray the expenses of the Wachusett Regional School District Debt Service Assessment for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, and to determine whether the town will appropriate money therefore to be provided by taxation or by appropriation from available funds, or take any action in relation thereto.
O'Malley, second.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, we're gonna take a vote. Ted,
Purcell, I.
Pete,
O'Malley, aye.
Tommy,
Rochelle, I.
David,
Lucy, I.
and Narwhal, aye. Okay? I make the motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town vote favorably on Article 9, which is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of money to defray the expenses of the Wachusett Regional School District Transportation Assessment for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, and to determine whether the town will appropriate money therefore to be provided by taxation or by appropriation from available funds, or take any action in relation thereto.
O'Malley, second.
Any discussion? Any discussion? We'll take a vote. Ted,
Purcell, I.
Pete,
O'Malley, aye.
Tommy,
Rochelle, I.
David,
Lucy, I.
and Narwhal, aye. Okay. I make the motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town vote unfavorably on Article 10, which is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of money to defray the expenses of the Wachusett Regional School District Operations Assessment for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, and to determine whether the town will appropriate money therefore to be provided by taxation or by appropriation from available funds, or take any action in relation thereto.
O'Malley, second.
Any discussion?
I have discussion. Karen?
Yep.
I would also ask our board, similar to what Holden is doing, if it's appropriate to denote under whether it's the motions or on the warrant, when FinCom's recommendation shows up, to also show a Board of Selectmen recommendation, because I also would like our board to discuss whether or not this is something that they would like to recommend favorably or unfavorably. And I personally think that we should be standing with our FinCom on this decision.
I concur.
Yeah, I mean, I thought we typically always had a vote on it somewhere at the meeting.
I want it specifically clear on the documents that town residents receive that both boards voted potentially unfavorably on this article.
And I believe we have to go through all the articles and take a vote as well on support or non-support of each article. I don't think we've done that, and I think we'll need to do that.
You want a motion, Mitch?
We can't. FinCom has got to vote first.
Is there any further discussion?
I have two questions, Karen.
Go ahead.
First question is, I can't remember what percent increase this particular line item is. I don't know if we have that off the top of our heads. And second, is this the one I need to abstain on? I'm pretty sure it is.
I don't think you have to abstain, because you as a townsfolk can vote on it.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Go
Lynn.
ahead, Lyndon.
I mean, just personally, I would advise Ted that you just abstain anyway. It's probably best, so there's no question. That's just personally in the past.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll now take a vote. Ted?
Purcell abstain.
Okay, Pete?
I vote unfavorably, aye.
Okay, Tommy?
Rochelle, I.
David?
Lucier, aye.
Narwhal, aye. Okay, that's the unfavorable one. Okay, I make the motion, that.
Karen, can
Yeah.
we take that vote real quick?
Sure.
All right, so I'll make a motion that we also, in accordance with our FinCom, vote unfavorably for the article just discussed.
Stillings, second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Stillings,
Stillings, aye.
Whitman,
Waitman, aye.
Nichols,
Nichols eye.
and Recity, aye. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you.
Sorry, Mitch, can I ask, or Karen, Mitch, can I ask a question?
Mhm.
Mitch, will we be doing the votes for all of the article items after we're finished with FinCom?
We still have to place an item too. And I think that when we get to it, we'll place it. And since we have FinCom here, we'll also get them to weigh in on that article as well.
Okay, thank you.
Others. Yeah. Go ahead, Karen.
All right, I make the motion that the Finance Committee recommend favorably on Article 11, which is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of money as may be necessary to defray the expenses of debt service for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, and to determine whether the town will appropriate money therefore to be provided by taxation or by appropriation from available funds, or take any action in relation thereto.
O'Malley second.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay. Ted?
Purcell, aye.
Pete?
O'Malley, aye.
Tommy?
Rochelle, I.
David?
Lucier, aye.
Narwhal, aye. Okay. Okay. I make the motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town vote favorably in Article 12, which is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of money to operate the Water and Sewer Department for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, or take any action in relation thereto.
O'Malley second.
Any discussion? No discussion? Okay. Ted?
Purcell, aye.
Pete?
O'Malley, aye.
Tommy?
Rochelle, I.
David?
Lucier, aye.
And Narwhal, aye. Okay. I make the motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town vote favorably on Article 13, which is to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money from the PEG Access and Cable Related Fund to fund PEG Access and Cable Related operations for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, and further that at the close of the fiscal year to provide that all unspent funds shall be closed back to the PEG Access and Cable Related Fund or take any action in relation thereto.
O'Malley second.
Okay. Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay. Ted?
Purcell, aye.
Pete?
O'Malley, aye.
Tommy?
Rochelle, I.
David?
Lucier, aye.
Narwhal, aye. Okay. Article 14. I make the motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town vote favorably on Article 14, which is to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 for the capital equipment, buildings, facilities, and other projects, and authorize the selectmen to take by eminent domain, purchase, or otherwise acquire any fee, easement, or interest in land necessary therefore, determine whether the funding shall be provided by tax levy, by transfer from available funds, by borrowing, or by any combination of these methods, and further to authorize the Board of Selectmen to apply for, accept, and expend any federal or state grant funds or private donations that may be available for such capital improvements, and to take such other action as may be necessary to effectuate the vote taken hereunder or take any action in relation thereto.
Over the objection of my dog, O'Malley, aye. O'Malley second.
Okay. Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, Ted,
Purcell, I.
Pete,
O'Malley, aye.
Tommy,
Rochella, I.
David,
Lucy or I.
and Narwhal, I. Okay. I make the motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town vote favorably on Article 15, which is to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to apply for, accept, and expend any grants or donations from state or federal governments or private agencies, individuals, or institutions, or take any action in relation thereto.
O'Malley second.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, Ted,
Purcell, I.
Pete,
O'Malley, aye.
Tommy,
Rochella, I.
David,
Lucy or I.
and Narwhal, I. Okay. I make the motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town vote favorably on Article 16, which is to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into contracts for goods and services with duration in excess of 3 years under provisions of GL Chapter 30B, Section 12B, or take any action in relation thereto.
O'Malley second.
Mitch, Jeff's got his hand up.
Sorry, Jeff, I didn't see it. Go ahead.
My apologies. Article 15 still says grand funds. It might change the meaning of the whole article.
Yep, we'll change it to grant. That was noted in the last meeting. If Karen's okay with voting on it, pending fixing the typo. Again, this is something that legal's reviewing and everybody's kind of going through to make sure the language is appropriate.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on Article 16? Okay, so Ted,
Purcell, I.
Pete,
O'Malley, aye.
Tom,
Rochella, I.
David,
Lucy or I.
and Narwhal, I. Okay, I make the motion that the Finance Committee recommend favorably on Article 17, which is to see if the town will vote to appropriate all funds which become available in the fiscal year 2021 from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Highways, Chapter 90 bond issue proceeds to be used by the DPW for the repair and maintenance of town roads in conformance with Mass General laws, and further that the town vote to raise said appropriation by borrowing and authorize the town treasurer with approval of the Board of Selectmen to issue bonds or notes of the town, therefore, in anticipation of the receipt of said state aid, or take any action in relation thereto.
O'Malley second.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, Ted,
Purcell, I.
Pete,
O'Malley, aye.
Tom,
Rochella, I.
David,
Lucy or I.
Narwhal, I. Okay. I make the motion that the Finance Committee recommend the town vote favorably on Article 18, which is to see if the town will vote pursuant to the provisions of General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, as most recently amended, to establish fiscal year 2021 spending limits for the revolving funds listed in Section 6 of the bylaw of the same name, all as set forth below, with such expenditure limits to be applicable for each fiscal year until such time as town meeting votes prior to July 1st in any year to change the same for the ensuing fiscal year, provided, however, that at the request of the entity authorized to expend such funds, the Board of Selectmen, with the approval of the Finance Committee, may increase such limit for that fiscal year only, all as set forth below. So Safe Place is 191,544. Board of Health is at 60,000. Planning Board is at 75,000. Recreation Department is 192,933. Animal Control is 6,000. Tax Title is 5,000. and cable access is 133,000. Or take any action in relation there too.
O'Malley second.
Okay. Any discussion? Leah, you got your hand up?
Yeah, thank you. I think you had read 2021. In some of the versions it was fiscal year 2021. In the version that we had uploaded to our Google Drive this afternoon, it's 2022. So I just wanted to clarify that we're working on the 2022 budget and that language is correct in whatever we're working for.
Yeah, well, this is what I had, so this is what I've been reading.
No,
so.
I know. I don't. No blame. No.
Yeah, well, okay. This is all for the fiscal, does everyone in the finance committee understand that although it says 2021, we're talking about the fiscal year 2022 budget?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second on Article 18. Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay.
Can I jump in, Karen, real quick?
Sure.
Stan again. Not sure we need the cable access in this vote. We voted in a previous article to take money from their revolving funds to fund their operations.
That's correct, Dan. I had a conversation, I think, with either you or Ron last week, and it might have even been Peter, that cable access should be removed from that article, so we can take care of that.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
So I'm sorry, through the chair. So the recommendation is that we vote favorably or unfavorably without cable access.
That's correct. That is
Okay.
correct. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll take a vote. Ted,
Purcell, I.
Pete,
O'Malley, aye.
Tom,
Bouchard, aye.
David,
Lucier, aye.
and Narwhal, aye. Okay.
I just want to clarify too, before we move on, for our members, Karen, that the Board of Selectmen, looking at past warrants and motions, normally does not recommend favorably or unfavorably on articles. That is the job of Finance Committee. And there are certain articles that have been brought forth by, let's say, Planning Board, where they'll be asked and they could recommend favorably or unfavorably. But again, that's not something that is my understanding we usually go through and vote favorably or unfavorably. We simply place. Karen, is that in line with your experience as well?
That is correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that because there were a couple questions. So between that question, Leah, you had asked, and Lyndon brought it up as well, I had pulled up our prior past warrants and motions just to make sure. But that is past practice for us, is that FinCom makes the recommendations on the motions. So make sure we're clear. Okay, Karen, go ahead.
So I'm going to ask, and we can all have this discussion, that the 2 citizens petitions get moved to the end of the warrant, because we have a very heavy bunch of business to be discussed on this evening of our town meeting. I think we need to get through the business before we start getting to the citizens petitions, and throwing them in might throw people to not stay for the remainder of the business. And we have some articles that are very important later on. And in my experience, it's always been the citizens petitions are the last articles on the warrant.
Does our board have any discussion based on the placement of those?
I have no problem.
No objection.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to move those citizen petition items to the end of the warrant.
So moved.
Second, Stones.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Whitman,
Whitman, aye.
Nichols,
Nichols, aye.
Stillings,
Stones, aye.
and Recity, aye. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Karen. So I think first, if you're not going to make any recommendations on citizens petitions, which I think is in line with what you've done prior with FinCom. Before we get to Article 22, we should place it first, if you're all right with that.
Well, but we're not at 22 yet. We're still at 20.
Oh, that's right. That's between the citizens petitions.
Yeah, that's the reason why. Yeah, there was other stuff. So,
Thank you.
and then we'll come back to the citizens petitions, because usually we recommend no action. It's usually what we, as a finance committee, do. So what should we do? Just do those just to get them on the books, or do we care?
I would just say, I don't care, but I mean, if you want to take a vote on them for no action, you could take them as a slate and just get them done now.
Okay, there are 2 citizens petitions, Article 19 and Article 21. Typically, the Finance Committee votes no action because we don't have all of the different boards and commissions haven't been involved with this. They're from citizens. So I would make the motion that the Finance Committee recommend no action.
O'Malley second.
Any discussion? Okay, we'll take a vote.
No,
Excuse me?
no action recommend, is that a recommendation that it not be voted upon necessarily, or is it more that we have no opinion on it?
That's exactly right. It's kind of like no opinion. It's just, we don't have an opinion either way because we haven't, it's by a citizen and it hasn't been vetted completely.
So you're not recommending, is my understanding, Karen, what you mean is when you say no action, you're not recommending the town take no action. You're just simply referring to no action from your board pertaining to the recommendation.
No, our recommendation has to be that the town take no action on the, we have to make a recommendation of how we recommend the town vote.
So you're recommending the town take no action on the citizen petition?
It's typically what we've done in the past.
I mean, that doesn't sound right, because I mean, you got citizens that signed off on these and folks that are pretty passionate about them. I would think you'd want to at least consider them before making that. I mean, when you see, if that's going to be part of the motion, no action recommended, I think that sends kind of a signal that the town should not vote for these. You know, we had is that the intent?
Go ahead, Tommy.
Aaron,
Go ahead, Tommy.
I think that's correct. I think we're taking no action on a recommendation. It's not that the town doesn't take any action on the article.
Jeff and then Leah.
Thank you. Well, I would just opine real quick. I think, the Finance Committee's options are favorable, unfavorable, or no action. So it's not unfavorable. But my question was, if I recall from our last meeting conversation, were we going to check with council legal on whether a citizen's petition should be as written and as signed by the citizens and not
it doesn't change the intent of the petition. And I talked to Ron, he talked to the citizen that petitioned, and he's fine with the way that the town wishes to put it on it. I think we're seeking clarification from KP on whether or not we can go with his wishes there, or it has to be placed as it was proposed. And I don't think there's any animosity on either side. It's more just, I think the intent was to clarify it and streamline it for the warrant. But we do have to get clarification on that, Jeff, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, through the chair. I think the discussion we had as we left off was not so much the petitioner's intention, but those who signed, the citizens that actually signed it, they signed it as it was presented, and whether it would be permissible to modify the wording after a citizen signed it. So.
Leah.
Thank you. I just wanted, I know we had talked about in planning board, Norm was on our select board meeting last week, but for FinCom, I think planning board is planning to have public hearings on both of the citizen petitions. So I forget the timeline. I think it's next week, maybe the end of April. So just I think we have to place the articles no matter what because they're citizens petitions. So there will be a little bit of outreach, but I totally understand Karen and FinCom's point that it's hard to make a recommendation when they may not have gone through all of the kind of official proper channels for some citizen petitions don't have any cost associated with them or
Yeah, but that wasn't the point though. The point was that they usually recommend no action on all citizens petitions, not that they haven't gone through. And I was under the impression that no action meant no recommendation from FinCom, not the town takes no action in relation to all citizens petitions. You know, we've had citizens petitions that are very widely popular and have been needed. In fact, last year, if you remember, it was for the electronic sign, and we got around that by funding it through CARES Act funding. But I'm not sure how I feel about recommending no action in terms of to the voting populace on all of our citizens petitions, because it's due course with what we've done before. But that's up to FinCom.
And I just wanted to reiterate to FinCom that planning board is offering public hearings for both of the petitions. So there is some sort of something, but it's not maybe the whole way.
Jeff?
Just lastly, I do believe that the precedence is that no action was the wording, because if I recall on the Strong Chief citizen petition of 3 years ago, there was a no action also. So that is consistent with precedence that's been set.
So through the chair, Karen, do we have a vote to recommend the town approve or not recommend, or a vote just not to take any action at all?
Yes, those are our three choices that we get to do.
So we're not going to be recommending no action. We're recommending that we don't take any action. We're voting that we take no action on these articles, right?
We have to make a recommendation to the town on our recommendation on how all of them are, we recommend the town vote favorably, we recommend the town vote unfavorably, or we recommend the town take no action on this article. So that would be what in the past we've done.
Okay.
It's up to the finance committee. That's what the motion, you know, it just kind of depends upon what you guys want to do, but that in the past is how we've done it.
So I would not be opposed to saying that the finance committee took no action on these articles, as opposed to recommending no action, that we've taken no action.
Karen?
Yes, Tommy?
I would agree with that. I think we should say, if we say unfavorable, is what's unfavorably that we're not recommending, because we haven't reviewed them, or we haven't vetted these whole things and know what all the details are. So I understand in some cases we may have done that in the past, but I don't think that's the only option. You're right, it's favorable, unfavorable, but we don't have the information nor anything else to make a recommendation on a citizen petition. So we're saying we don't have a recommendation either way, so it's unfavorable from us, because we're not recommending either way.
But these articles will be reviewed and theoretically approved. At that point in time, would we come back and then recommend for approve, favorable or unfavorable? Are we going to have time to do that?
Legal is not going to be looking and vetting for the citizen's petition. Legal looks just to make sure that the warrant articles are properly written. When it's a citizen's petition, it is just placed after signatures.
So Karen, you're saying we're not able to, as a board, take a vote for us to take no action. We have to take a vote for the town to take no action.
I believe that's what our job is to make a recommendation. I mean, I haven't gone back to see what we've done in the past. It's always been, we make the motion that the town take no action on this article. I mean, we can go back and look and see. We can table it. You know what? Let's table 19 and 21 and let's move on and get the rest of them done, and we'll worry about 19 and 21 later.
I like that.
Yeah, because it's getting late.
Good
and
idea.
this was going to be an easy night. So
So,
I make the
Karen.
motion that the finance committee recommend the town vote favorably on Article 20, which is to see if the town will vote to accept Woodside Avenue and Sedona Circle as town public ways. And you can read through everything that's there. I'm not reading it.
So Karen, O'Malley second, but before we go to that, should we, I think you had you had a motion and a second on 19 and,
Okay, let's take a vote to table 19 and 21 until, 10 minutes before the town meeting, I guess. I don't know.
Karen, you don't need a vote to table.
okay. So it's now nothing we have to deal with.
Exactly.
Okay,
So we have a motion and a second on Article 20. Is there any discussion on Article 20? Okay, we'll now take a vote. Ted,
Purcell, aye.
Pete,
O'Malley, aye.
Tom,
Bouchard, aye.
David,
Lucy, I.
and Narwhal, aye. Okay. Okay, 22, you guys have to do first.
Yeah, so this is the banning sprinklers that we talked about at the last meeting. Received clarification from Director Buckley that this was part of an agreement with DEP, that we would place this, it needs to pass, but Alan has to vote on this to meet our order of agreement with DEP as part of a great overall agreement regarding use of our water. Is that fair, Mr. Buckley?
Yes, plainly, we signed an administrative consent order with DEP to give us access to more water to meet our current development needs. There were several conditions. This is one of them. Did
Okay.
everyone receive a copy of the order?
Yep.
Okay.
Went out, Ron sent an email. It basically states that this needs to be part of something we do. So seeing as we have to place it, I'll entertain a motion to place it,
I make a motion to take no action on Article 22,
not to place.
to take no action. So we still place the article, we just not,
No, we didn't place the article.
oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we just.
We have to place that
All right, I
tonight.
make a motion to place the article. I thought we were voting on support or not.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Whitman seconds.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, have a roll call vote. Stillings,
Stillings, no.
Whitman,
Whitman, aye.
Nichols,
Nichols, aye.
and Resity, aye. Begrudgingly, I guess. Go ahead, Karen, now that it's placed.
Okay, I don't know if anyone's had the chance to look this over in the finance committee. Anyone want to make a motion?
So, I mean, before you guys vote or motion, I mean, what this does is if you are on town water, you cannot, are prohibited from installing underground sprinkler devices after July 1st, which is the start of the next fiscal year. And again, this is being mandated that we at least vote on it by the state. So that's pretty much the crux of it. Leah.
Thanks. This is just kind of a conversation piece while FinCom has a couple minutes to look things over. I think it's silly. And also, I think Jeff had mentioned in the past that he hasn't been able to use his underground installed sprinkler system because of the water bans that we have habitually. And I don't see the water bans going away. So while I don't necessarily agree with kind of making it completely, you can't ever do this, but some sort of awareness to homeowners and potential homeowners in town that it may be an expense that they're putting out that very well they may not be able to get much use out of, only because the historical water basin and everything. I don't know how to do that, but rather than have citizens that are very upset that they've spent an arm, you know, a fortune on installing this and not able to get the water ban. Yeah.
Well, your point is well taken, and while it is silly, we're mandated to do it, and if we compile the list of all the silly things that the state and federal government made us do, I think we'd be here for hours talking about it. I think that the way this would work after July 1 is that ideally, if a homeowner were not aware of the stipulation, they should be pulling a permit to install the system, and at that point, the town would flag it and say, you can't do that. For folks that already have systems or have already put the money into them, again, understanding that there is a water ban, I would think as a consumer as part of their due diligence, and that's something that really the town, it's a slippery slope getting involved with all the new people moving in to make that aware, other than maybe posting on the website or social media. But Jeff, see your hand up.
I just want to reiterate what I opined at the last meeting on why I'm opposed to placing it, because who's the DEP? Who are they to tell us what we have to do? Because this town has already set a precedence on what laws we feel like obeying. And there's a larger entity, the United States government, that that has laws that we have related to articles placed on this warrant that we choose to ignore.
So you're talking about the marijuana issues?
Yeah, I mean, we choose to ignore that.
I get the point. Again, DEP is mandating it, and they're governing our water supply, so it would make Director Buckley's life and our lives much more miserable should we not decide to comply with these orders, because it's something that we need to work towards to remedy a bunch of other issues we have in town. And
also, through the chair, I think it also the argument is for the other environmental, I don't know if it was DEP, but it was another environmental entity that was trying to control our stormwater, the grass clippings and things like that, and telling us that we had to pay another $75,000 a year to control the grass clippings and whatnot. And on that, I'm opposed. Thank you.
No, I get it, and I agree. Lyndon.
Could I just make a quick comment to the chair, please?
Yes, Mr. Buckley, and then Lyndon, feel free after.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nichols. I want to make everyone aware, most often when the water bans are put in place, we are complying with state mandates. So we are complying with DEP mandates. It has to do with the Water Management Act. So it's rare for the town to go and do a water ban on their own. We're required to do it to comply with state regulation. That's what happens most often.
Yep. Lyndon.
Although I'm not advocate to supporting it, because I think we can control it through bans, but just to play the devil's advocate, the premise behind it is water's expensive to treat, and it continues to increase in costs. And as you're treating water and you're throwing it out on your lawn, each year you're going to increase the cost of treating water, which is going to increase the cost of drinking water. So it's not like there isn't any logic behind it. Even people that have hooked up to wells, they bypass their filtering systems and other systems so they don't go through the expense of filtering their water before sending it out onto the lawn. So there is some logic to what they're saying, but I think it can be regulated locally.
It's a good point.
Karen?
Yes, go ahead, Tommy.
Maybe we could ask the state to, if they're gonna make us do these things, why don't we say you've got to supply the funds to fund the school busing account like they're supposed to, the same way. So, they do what they want.
They mandate us to have a seat for every child on the school bus, whether they sit there or not. Skip that one too.
Well, I wonder where they'll put that letter.
Do I have anyone on the finance committee that wants to make a motion on how we recommend at this point, or do we feel comfortable? Do we want to take a little bit more time to research? What do we want to do? What's the pleasure of the committee?
So through the chair, Karen,
Yep.
this is our vote here, favorable or unfavorable, would be on recommending the town amend the bylaw, right? That's basically what we're saying this
Yes.
article does.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Karen,
Yep.
wasn't it said earlier that the town signed a consent order and this is part of the order? I mean, if we've already agreed to it, we're kind of stuck, aren't we? I mean, I agree with, I think this is probably a good idea myself, but if it cuts down on using water and filtering, that'll maybe lower our bills a lot.
I don't know when the state's ever reduced my bill on anything, but
No,
Tom,
town water bill.
just to clarify, the consent order merely states that we place it. So it's up to the purview of FinCom as to whether or not they want to review or recommend this favorably or unfavorably. That's entirely within your jurisdiction to do so.
So it just has to be placed. If it doesn't pass, we don't have to place it again. It just has to be placed.
That's my understanding, Mr. Buckley, if you can clear. I think the consent order says we have to make a best faith effort. So
We have to, it has to be placed, and we do have to provide the results of the vote. That's the way it's written in the order.
Oh.
And it's a court order, so put some stock in that.
Well, I guess as a FinCom wise, it's a matter of, is it going to save the town money or cost the town money at that point, right?
So to that point,
I don't, actually, it doesn't, it has to do with the enterprise, so it's not gonna save or cost. The only thing is if we don't comply with the order, we'd have to spend money on legal fees. That's about it.
I would say let's table this one and we'll go over that one at the same time as the citizens petitions so that everyone will have a chance to look this over.
One quick thing to the chair, please.
Sure.
If you need me to come in, I can do that. Or if you need a copy of the order, I can also get you that. I would caution everybody involved, though, it's already late. We were able to negotiate with them to push it off 6 months or so because of the pandemic, but it was supposed to be done by now.
Okay.
Well, it's placed, so we've met our requirement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
And Karen, just let me know. I'll come in.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. So I make the motion that the town vote favorably on Article 23, which is to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of MGL Chapter 32, Section 4.2, which will allow service by a permanent, intermittent, or call firefighter to be credited for purposes of retirement as full-time service, as provided in paragraph B of said statute, except that credit for such service shall not be conditioned upon the appointment of said permanent, intermittent, or call firefighter as a permanent member of the fire department.
O'Malley second.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, we're gonna take a vote. Ted?
Purcell, aye.
Pete?
O'Malley, aye.
Tom?
Rushala, aye.
David?
Lucy, or I?
And Narwhal, aye. Okay. I guess I make the motion that the FinCom recommend the town vote favorably on Article 24, which is to see if the town will vote to increase the membership of the Historical Commission to a total of 7 members per MGL Chapter 40, Section 8D.
O'Malley second.
Any discussion? Any
What's
discussion?
the number now?
I think it's 6.
It's six, sir. Through the chair.
And are there 6 members now?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Fully seated and active.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay. Ted,
Purcell, aye.
Pete,
O'Malley, aye.
Tom,
Roshala, I.
David,
Lucy, or I,
and Narwhal, aye. And I don't think we make a motion on Article 25. I'll go back and I'll look. Okay, so I think the Finance Committee is finished with going through theirs, and we'll go through and gentlemen, do we think that Thursday we could be ready to vote our recommendations on those three?
I think
we
so.
should be able- Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Since we are finished with our business here, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
second,
Any discussion? Okay, Ted,
Purcell, aye.
Pete,
O'Malley, aye.
Tom,
Roshala, I.
David,
Lucy, or I.
and Narwhal, aye. We are adjourned at 7:16 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, FinCom.
Okay, we'll let everybody clear out. And then we're gonna move on. We do actually have to vote tonight to sign the town meeting warrant because it has to be printed on Friday. So that's something, go ahead, Leah.
I know Karen and FinCom had suggested that we move the citizens petitions to the end. But I was wondering if, other than that, we were okay with the order. I don't think we talked really any specifics about the order the other night. I don't think any major concerns came up, and I think FinCom had the opportunity to provide that feedback tonight, but I just wanted to touch base with everyone.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I don't think anybody commented on the order of moving those citizens petitions, and quite frankly, I don't think we need to vote on it because it's more procedural. So I know that Ron's on vacation, but I guess I can send an email follow-up, and I know Becky's sitting in too. And we can just have those items shifted to the end if the board's amenable to it. Lyndon,
Yeah, just to make a note, so we removed 2, and then with moving those, I just don't want there to be confusion with the changing of the numbers on the articles, on the motions and everything, so.
understood. So Article 2 is coming off, and Article 22 is being placed, which will become Article 21, and then the citizens petitions will be moved to the end, and that's kind of what we agreed on tonight. Okay. So again, we do have to vote to sign the warrant.
Make a motion that we sign the warrant as placed.
Do I have a second?
Second. John.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Stillings,
Goings, aye.
Whitman,
Whitman, aye.
Nichols,
Bullseye.
and our city aye. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. So going back,
Sorry,
Yeah.
do we all, I think we all need to stop in to sign individually, correct? So,
you only need a quorum. Not all of us need to sign.
okay,
Quorum to sign.
all right, and that would be post legal review, so probably the end of this week, correct?
Correct. Lyndon,
I just want to make a note that Becky was going to check as far as the wording on the override. So my motion is, with any revisions necessary according to council for the override questions.
of course, we're still waiting on some clarification on a few different things, and there were some typos and some wording that's been have to change. Par for the course. As long as we're all operating under that understanding, I think the motion's fine. Okay. And then I guess, Becky, I know you're filling in for Ron. If you could just email me on the board when it's ready to be signed, we can have folks stop in to sign off on it.
Yeah, I'll be working closely with Anita too, to just make sure that all that's in and ready to go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, quickly, we'll have a brief discussion regarding the town meeting location and time. I know Mike Moriarty has been working very hard on this, I know there was a group that met, including Anita, Mike, and Randy, who was also in the meeting tonight. Thank you all for attending. There were some proposed options that went out, and I think what I would like to see from our board, because we do have to vote for the location, is to give some flexibility. We had talked about having it in Glenwood with your 3-foot social distance requirement and then some overflow rooms. I talked to Anita today. She indicated that the voting machines work both in the auditorium and then downstairs in the cafeteria. I know there was a plan, or Holden did this last year, and they put a screen up in the cafeteria for overflow, and it was allowed to accommodate some folks. The other discussion that came up was, I think Mike and Randy, you had a conversation about potentially holding the meeting at Wachusett at the high school. We're still waiting to hear back from facilities on the logistics of that. And that obviously provides us with a little bit more space. But I know that Mike, Randy, and Anita, the whole team, probably Seth as well, are working on pinning down the details. Anita, I see you're on the call too. Am I off track with any of my comments? Or perhaps Randy, I see you're also there. Is that correct? You're unmuted, Randy, so if you...
Oh, all right, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not very technically advanced. Yes, so we had a little brief meeting today. If we had choices in life, our choices would be, we'd like to go to the Wachusett Regional High School first, would be our easiest choice, less headaches, less weather concerns, more space. Our second choice would be to have it outside at Glenwood, similar to what we did last year at the annual meeting. Our concern there is if we have more than 175 cars, it would be congested. But yet people could come and walk and do all that. If there's a lightning storm or severe rain, we would have to cancel or postpone the meeting due to that. And our third choice would be to go into Glenwood School like we normally do with social distancing, but there's desks there. And then the ability to run 2 areas, whether it was the gymnasium and the cafeteria downstairs, is an area that Mike and Peter have been diligently working on to make it work. And there's some uncertainty of whether we have cameras or not cameras, mics, no mics down there. So Wachusett, bigger, easier. They've done it before. It's easiest, and it's not that far over the border for us. And it has been done in the past, from my understanding, is where we'd like to go. We had hoped to have answers for you tonight in regards to that. I'd like some flexibility of the 5 of us that kind of got together to do it. And obviously we need to make a decision by tomorrow because it has to be signed or posted on Friday. In turn, the other thing that I would like you to consider is Ron had spoke to me a few weeks ago about if I was okay with the time moving up to 4 o'clock. I understand you had moved it from 7 to 6 recently. Anita was unaware that you guys had that I had spoke to Ron about the 4. Ron was concerned about trying to finish it in the course of a day. I assured him that we haven't had that problem in the past as I've been moderator doing it. The one consideration that I would have for 4 o'clock is if we had to go with option 2, it potentially would be lighter, longer if we started at 4 than at 6 if we were outside. So I think I would like you to say, hey, we'd like to do the event at 4, possibly, and then we go at the high school at 4 if it's available. The one variable is if the high school has a function for whatever reason, parking or functionality of in the auditorium, and they couldn't let us in until 5 or 6, then that is a variable that I can't answer at the moment.
Okay, Mike, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, just real quick, Randy, in regards to that, if we do move it to 4, I just thought about this, the Police Departments Association is doing that 5K that day as well. And I don't know if we're gonna be pushing it too close to their event, because they're having it at Glenwood as well.
Yeah, I think for logistics, and Randy, you're correct in that we've never had that problem. The warrant, other than the budget issues that we're looking at, is relatively light. I'm not concerned about going super late, and I know, Randy, you run a pretty good meeting. So if you think that's not a concern other than the outside issue of the light, I would just go ahead and say we should keep it at 6 to avoid the issue with, there's going to be a lot of folks that go to that 4 or that 5K that probably want to attend town meeting. Those are your same civically minded folks, including our officers, I would imagine. But what I would like to do, after speaking with Anita and hearing from Randy, and I know that the team's working hard to put something together, is to vote as a board to allow the team the flexibility to set the location and be supportive of that decision between those 3 that Randy had outlined. Does that, Mike and Randy, does that give you the flexibility that you need?
Yes, very much so, Mike. Excuse me, Mitch. I appreciate that. My thought for you is there anything we as the committee thought about? Is there something that we're missing?
No, I think, again, you all went through this last year, which is more challenging. We have a lot of the population that's been vaccinated. You know, my big concern, and this is something that's out of your all's control, is are the seniors going to feel comfortable showing up still, even though that population's been vaccinated? That's something I think we saw at the fall town meeting, where you had a lot of people that you usually see out in the stands, you know, that do like to participate that weren't there. But I'm not sure that there's any solution that you can come up with that's going to change that dynamic. So does anybody on the board have any other concerns or anything that they'd like to task the group with? No, I'm not seeing any. Okay. I mean, that's it, Randy. I mean, this is your call. You're working with Mike and with Anita, and the primary objective here is maximizing participation and safety. So, again, I'll accept a motion from our board to allow the working group the discretion as to the location of the meeting.
So moved. Nichols?
Whitman seconds.
Any further discussion from our board? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Stillings?
Stillings, aye.
Whitman?
Whitman, I with much appreciation for the group working on this.
Nichols?
Nichols, aye. Thank you.
For city, aye. Motion carries unanimous. Randy and Mike, is that what you needed from us tonight, or is there something else that you want to talk through while you're here?
No, that's all our concerns. Thank you. I guess maybe there's one question that should be asked that we didn't talk about as a committee. We talked about it briefly. What are our restrictions as a group? If the high school says, yes, you can use the hall, but it's going to cost X dollars, is there money available? Anita said there wasn't much money available in her account. If we had to do some cable things, is there some money in there? If we have to have it outside, is there money there that can be had? Is that something? And I can't even say, hey, it could be $3,000. Do you want to give us a blanket to do that? I'm anticipating minimal charge. Mike, correct me if I'm wrong. If we have to get an FM receiver or an antenna to help the outside, if we have to go that way, that's a few $100s or a longer cord. So we could have some additional expenses, and I'm not certain where those funds could come from, Mitch, and I don't know if you can answer it or not.
I would think, honestly, and I see everybody's hand up, and I bet we're going to say the same thing, but I would check with Seth about CARES Act or FEMA reimbursement for those costs for that meeting. Mike, I'm not sure if you've had any of those conversations with the fire chief, but I would be willing to bet that that would be an allowable expense under those funds. But Lyndon and Jeff, I saw your hands up as well. Lyndon and then Jeff.
That was exactly my point, Mitch. Thank you.
And Jeff?
At the same point with the snarty remark that maybe they could take it out of the 7% increase they want.
Yeah, we could just bill Wachusett it back for it if we have it at the high school. Or who knows, they might bill us. You might find an invoice in the mail for whatever we don't pass at town meeting. But Randy, I think you and Mike and Anita, I would check in with Seth and with Ron when he's back, specifically relating to that cable question. There might be something we could work around there as well. But just let us know, keep us up to date if you need anything from the board, and whatever you find out. We'll try to help as much as we can.
I believe that was our general consensus, that we could figure it out, but I wanted to make you aware of it, just if there's an unforeseen that we couldn't figure it out, we needed some help with.
Understood. Just keep us in the loop and we'll certainly do what we can.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Under new business, we have discussion of the gifts and grants policy. I thought we had talked about this and we're waiting for some clarification from Ron. So if it's okay with the board, just to move things along, we'll table this until he's back. I don't think it's anything that's pressing for this particular meeting, unless I hear any dissent from the board. So hearing none, we'll just move along. The other discussion item we do have to have tonight is the Wachusett regional agreement. That meeting is being held by the school committee on the 28th, which is next Wednesday, and they've asked for feedback from all of the towns regarding the regional agreement and their 5-year reassessment. So I know that you all had received a copy. There's a copy available on the website. So I'd like to, if anyone has any recommended changes, I have a few that I'd like to see. And what I would like to do is, if we vote or agree on a series of changes as a board, we can have Beth write an email to school committee, or I can go and attend the meeting, as several of the other towns did when they last met last month, to discuss this on our behalf as a board. So I guess I'll just open the floor up to the board as to changes they want to see. Otherwise, I can kick us off because I have some proposed changes in the agreement as well. All right. In line with what, excuse me, Holden had recommended, I'm not sure if you all have the document open or can open it, because it was sent along. We can just go along with it. I'm not sure if anyone's listening to be able to share the agreement on the screen, and I don't believe I have the capability of doing that. All right, so right now, just opening it up. There's just a few things that I think to be in line with what some of the other communities suggested that we can suggest. And just, come on. All right. I'm sorry. All right, so if we go to section 8.1.1 in the agreement, that is withdrawal of member towns. As of right now, we have it as written with a 2/3 affirmative vote to withdraw from the district. At any regular or special town meeting of any member town, such member town shall request to withdraw from the district. What Holden, I believe, had recommended, and what I would like to also recommend is change the 2/3 for majority throughout the document. We have this kind of set up the same way as zoning, and I think to better serve the democratic process, we should change that vote to a majority. Section 8.1.3 reads, the approval of the amendment to withdraw shall require a 2/3 vote in the member town withdrawing, again, and a majority vote on a district-wide basis in all other members of the towns of the district. I think if the majority vote's needed in all members of the town of the district, it should be also required in the town wishing to withdraw. So my recommendation will be that be changed to a simple majority. And in addition, as of right now, it requires all other towns to vote favorably for the withdrawal. And I would, similar to the way the budget is structured, the budgetary process, I would like to change that to a vote of 3 out of the 5 member towns, which would make it easier for towns in the district to withdraw if the voters so choose. Is everyone following all right? Or am I? All right. Again, 8.2.1, we'll change that from 2/3 to a simple majority. 8.2.1, again, I'd like to strike the language, if the town or towns which originally requested to withdraw shall not again request to withdraw pursuant to the subsection, then such town or towns shall thereafter be barred from again requested to withdraw from the district for 2 years. Ostensibly, if you strike that, it would allow the town, if it is unhappy 2 years in a row, to petition to withdraw instead of having to wait the 2-year period. And then I want 8.2.2, I think that should be stricken altogether. And then the last change that I would recommend making would be that we have weighted committee votes and membership for school committee. As we are the 2nd largest town in the district, I think that that would certainly benefit us, and that's also something that Holden has requested. And I think that's only fair and would remove some confusion from how that committee operates. Those are my recommendations. Again, just a starting point. I know you all had a chance to look at it, so I'd love the feedback from you all. Some of these are in line with what other towns had requested we do at the last roundtable. So Jeff, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. So is Rutland the first or the last of the remaining towns to concur with Holden?
Holden had made recommendations at the last meeting. The only other town to ask for anything was Paxton, and the other towns, us included, while we attended, we were in the midst of the budgetary process and requested more time as this request came in late from the school committee. So the other towns are, excuse me, doing what we're doing and regrouping and getting feedback from their members before presenting any additional comments.
My initial impression is that, I mean, these are some heavy amendments going from 2/3 to pull out of Wachusett to 51%. We've seen the, you know, I'm not advocating either way, but we have seen the results of what I call stacked town meetings. I don't know, should we have further discussion on this?
Well, there's a high likelihood, Jeff, that whatever we recommend is going to get thrown out the window anyway. So it's more about making a statement as to how we perceive the job that the school committee and the school is doing, particularly with the budget process. That's how I see it, because, you know, you can recommend whatever you want, but I guarantee you that none of this is going to make it in the actual agreement.
Just to clarify for me, when we talk about the 2/3, we're talking about 2/3 of the school committee vote, or are we talking about town meeting vote?
No, when a town, it's my understanding, when a town petitions to withdraw from the district, it has to go to the town for a vote.
Before.
Yep, and then after that point, all the other towns get a chance to weigh in on that withdrawal from a member town. And that's what we're talking about, not the school committee.
I guess I don't have an opinion either way. I'd like to hear from subject matter experts. And
well, we're supposed to be the experts. So
doesn't mean we are.
No, well, you know.
Doesn't mean we are.
Leah.
Thanks. First, I agree with the reorganization of the school committee size and makeup of itself. I feel like those, the committee is so large, it's hard to function well, and those meetings are our marathons. So I think to make that committee more efficient, that I wholly agree with that. As for your proposed amendments, it's a lot to take in, and while I agree with restructuring the way for member towns to withdraw, I'm not sure that I necessarily am 100% on board with your proposed amendments. I'm looking through and processing your amendments in the context of the article. So I conceptually kind of agree with your thought processes, and I think Holden had a similar thought process as how to make it easier for member towns to withdraw or approach the withdrawal process than what it currently is. I'm not sure how that looks yet, though. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Understood. It's my thought process coming to it was the member town that wishes to withdraw, we're essentially putting the bar at what a zoning bylaw would take, and maybe not for long because those zoning changes are going through. But every other town is a simple majority. Why shouldn't the member town be a simple majority rather than 2/3? It makes it unusually high for any town to voice its displeasure. And again, Leah, this is more about, I don't want to say making a statement, but it's about providing the town with more flexibility, more options, because chances are anything that we submit is going to get thrown out anyway. And the reality is this too, is that the regional district, if things keep going, and this is not placing any sort of malice or blame on the district. I mean, education costs are going through the roof, and there's myriad reasons for that, and they're not the fault of the district. But when you have 3 towns that have to put forth overrides in the period of 2 years, it shows you one or two things. Either all of the towns that are members are incompetent and can't manage themselves, or there's a fundamental problem with the nature of education funding. And we're in a point where even if the override passes in this town, and the school budget, whether it passes or fails, we're still going to be in a problem a year or 2 from now, because that override number just gets us to tread water. If we come in next year with another 7% increase ask, we're in the same position a year from now, which is what's happened in Paxton. And they can't put an override to their citizens 2 years in a row. That looks really bad. So again, this is more about just providing more of the towns the flexibility. It's not about withdrawing. It's not about saying that that's what we're going to do. It's just that we need, for the next 5 years, a more flexible agreement that allows the town the flexibility to have these discussions. And that's the only intent. Lyndon.
Yeah, so I agree with your revisions, Mitch, and I understand the premise behind it. And I also agree that we don't know where, but at least we're trying to be heard that we don't agree with the current process, and there needs to be some changes going into the future. So
what do you need?
Well, I was just hoping to have a discussion and at least we can vote to present some of these on our behalf at the meeting on the 28th with the school committee as proposals. And we, excuse me, and I could certainly have Beth put this in a letter form and have the members individually, our members, make sure they get a chance to edit that before we go into the school committee meeting. But I mean, this is really our chance to, we've had time to look at it, our chance to deliberate this as a board before we go into the 28th school committee meeting. Leah, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, can you clarify for me also, and I think we had this conversation, I can't remember. I remember voting that we were gonna table or offer the school committee, the district, the opportunity to delay this agreement by a year. And I know we had passed that as a board ourselves, but then suddenly it seems like this has been very rushed within the past month in the midst of all the budget season.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how we got to it needs to be done this month and everything. And I don't know if there's still an option to delay this, even if it's not out a full year, a full 6 months or something, and as we're working through this budget process also, because I think all the towns are in the budget quandary that we're in.
I would like to do that, but the answer is no, because we voted to push this back, and the school committee wanted initially, if you remember, like you were right, Leah, they wanted to push this back because of the pandemic and everything going on to next year, most likely probably because the public was not happy with the school committee. And they were expecting this kind of feedback, but they did change their mind and change course and decide they wanted this done this year per the agreement. So it's not really our decision to make. It's my understanding to push it. I mean, we can ask them to reconsider, but I don't think that that's where the train is headed.
I mean, I would just kind of ask for clarification in a dialogue back and forth, why the sudden switch gears, and have the sense that this feels very rushed now, in the midst of a very kind of time-consuming time for a majority, if not all 5 towns.
Absolutely. Okay. Does anybody else have any suggested changes to the agreement or anything that they want to put forth?
Sorry, if I can, I'm going through, and I looked at it a while ago. I don't think that there's any opportunity for member towns to provide feedback to the district as far as the district administration and running of the district as a whole. And this is not simply the financial side of things, but I think that it's important for, as they're providing the towns a service, that we are able to provide that feedback to the school committee or to whomever, as far as how the administration of things of the district as a whole is going.
Yeah,
and I don't know if that's something we can push for.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because I don't know if anybody else was in that meeting. It took place during a FinCom meeting, and I jumped out of FinCom to attend it because Ron asked me to. At the last school committee meeting where this was discussed, Paxton and Holden both asked for more transparency in both the budget process as well as some of the decisions being made. So I think a request for transparency is in line with what the other towns are requesting. Pertaining to feedback on how they run, I mean, that's the charge of the school committee, and I think that we just need to make our feedback more clear in our meetings if we have that feedback, and both as residents and members, but also through our school committee delegation, who's done a pretty good job in advocating for Rutland on our behalf, I will say. So that's a good point, Leah. But we can certainly, I can add to the list more transparency regarding both the budget and kind of some of the internal workings in the decision-making process, because that mirrors something that Holden and Paxton also asked for as well.
And I think that's one of the only ways that any sort of trust can even be started to be built at all. So with the towns and individual the citizens of the town. So thank you.
And that does fall on the school committee. I don't want to make it sound like it's the district administration that some of this stuff that's within the school committee's charge, and they should be providing some of that. Anyone else? If not, we can move it along. I would like to take a vote on it, if you all don't mind, just because we should come up with something as a board to talk about on the 28th. And again, I could put this in writing and send it out, open to bringing up anything an individual member would like to add into the conversation as well. And I'll make a note, if it's not something as part of what we vote on tonight, that it was expressed by an individual member outside, but more than happy to bring that up as part of the conversation as well on the 28th. Leah.
One other thing, I know, and I think that we are constrained by MGL for the budgetary issues and everything, but is there any way just to make it more readily, and they know, but that it's documented in the agreement, that the increases per year, that the towns are only able to tax at 2.5%, and these increases of 4 to 10% per year on an individual town are just not sustainable. And I'm not sure that necessarily comes through in an agreement process. There's a very short section 10 budget. The committee shall prepare and present a budget for the ensuing fiscal year to each member town as provided in MGL. And that's it. So I'm not sure if the towns can offer any formalized guidance in that respect or not.
I think you can, because MGL to your point, doesn't prohibit the school committee in presenting, like, for example, we've had these conversations and we had the budget roundtable, and all the towns were unhappy because it's like pulling teeth to get certain numbers out of the district when it really shouldn't take that, right? So I think we could certainly raise the point to where, outside of MGL, we want to be provided these specific numbers as part of our analysis process as a town. I don't think that is contrary to anything that's in the agreement. If that's something, Leah, that something similar to that you're referring to, and obviously the transparency bit, being cognizant of the fact that it seems like this comes in last minute every year, and then it's a battle to get information from the district.
And the budget roundtable just really almost seems like an exercise in futility, in the sense that the member town's feedback has the appearance of being disregarded often, and that's frustrating for all participants. At least I think, from speaking for us as a board, and I don't want to speak on FinCom's behalf, but I think that FinCom shares that frustration also. And I don't think that it's solely to Rutland's frustration. I think that that's a member town frustration also.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating having to go through this agreement and put this document together, realizing that it's probably just going to get shredded as soon as it goes out the door. But you're right, the roundtable it's tough. It's tough. All right, so I'll go ahead and make a motion to present this to the school committee on the 28th. I'm just looking for a motion of support. And what I'll do is I'll put it in a document and have Beth circulate it. And again, if you have any other points as individual members you want me to bring up, I'll certainly do that on the 28th on your behalf. And I would encourage anyone else to attend, and they can also speak on their own behalf as members of the select board. Here, knowing that we're not going to probably deliberate this again, so there's no risk of creating an open meeting violation.
I'll second your motion.
Any further discussion?
I am still, like I said, mulling over your recommended changes that you verbally gave us for that section. I think it's section 8 mostly, the withdrawal piece. And like I said, conceptually, I agree with making that whole process easier. I'm not sure that I'm 100% on board with your exact wording. So I would like to see that, but conceptually, I'm in agreement with you, if that makes sense.
Yep, I get it. All right, we'll have a roll call vote. Stillings.
Stillings, aye.
Nichols.
Nichols, aye.
Whiteman.
Whiteman, aye, with that note about the conceptually.
Yep. No, I'll send it around, and like I said, more than happy to take any feedback to the 28th if you folks can't make it. So, and Recity, aye. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Now the rest of this agenda, hopefully we can breeze through here. Okay, we have a 300th anniversary committee appointment. There's one candidate, Jeff Stillings, on our own board, has expressed interest in being appointed. I believe we've heard from the chair. Jeff, I'm going to ask you, have you heard from the chair?
I haven't. No, I haven't. I don't see any concerns though.
Okay.
I haven't heard from him regarding this. If I could just give a quick background. So we have been meeting almost weekly, and I've been participating as a member of the select board. And I say we, the committee's at the phase right now where they're really starting to get geared into some fundraising so that they'd be able to plan for events on there. And as you know, my term with the select board expires at the election on May 10th. And I've sort of volunteered to help them out with some of the fundraising, specifically with the raffles. And also we wanted to talk about, if Chair would put it on the agenda, maybe some community concerts in the fall on the Common. And I said I was willing to head that, to do that, but I'd be without an appointment at that point because I would no longer be on the board. So that was the reason why I put in for the 300th committee. So if I was going to be doing that, I should at least be part of a committee in there. And it's my understanding that there isn't any other outside interest in there. So that's why I submitted that, so that I would at least have a viable seat to be able to do these fundraisings on behalf of the town. That's my.
Can we have a helicopter flyover? Is that doable?
Absolutely. And cannons. And cannons. There's been several requests for a cannon return. Yes.
All right. Just to keep precedent with our other appointments, I'll go ahead and make a motion to appoint Mr. Stillings to the 300th Anniversary Committee, pending a quick email or note from the chair indicating a recommendation.
Nichols second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, have a roll call vote. Stillings.
Stillings recused, thank you.
Nichols.
Nichols eye.
Whitman.
Whitman, aye.
And Resity, aye. Motion carries unanimous, or 3 yeas and 1 recusal. Thanks, Jeff. I after seeing some of the events you put together, I really look forward to what you can bring to the table there. So thank you. All right, I think we've discussed the Article 22, which is the banning of sprinklers, and the warrant article discussion with FinCom took place earlier, and we discussed the donation. Is there anything else or correspondence or anything the board members wish to bring forward prior to a motion for adjournment? Mr. Stillings and Leah.
2 items, if I could, through the chair. Because it's not specifically on the agenda, could we maybe put a placeholder in there to talk about fall events for the 300th?
Yep, that's going to be on the next agenda. I know that you had requested an item for the concert series.
And a second one, if I could, for the board, next Wednesday, we are tentatively planning on the John Sonji Memorial Bench unveil, if you will. The chief has that slated for 1 o'clock. It's next Wednesday. It's my understanding that the bench will be ready and be delivered on Monday. So if the board is available, we're going to do a very short, brief dedication of the bench next Wednesday, 1 p.m. Right in front of the police station.
And just as a scheduling matter, now that Jeff brought that up, that reminds me, I have seen a citizens petition go around. We had discussed as a board putting together a hearing for the prison camp issue. And I want to set a date, if the board can, to have that hearing. I think we had talked during the last meeting that this item should probably be taken on its own outside of a regular meeting, because based on the number of signatures on that petition, it looks like you're going to have a lot of participation on that issue. So just looking at the calendar, if we wanted to schedule it, perhaps after town meeting, maybe the week of the 10th going to the 14th. Of course, obviously after town meeting election, we can do that. We do need to advertise it for 10 days, keep in mind, prior to the hearing taking place. Jeff, you have your hand up.
I would just suggest that you do it as soon as possible, because based on the DCI memorandum, they intend to begin demolition in the quote summer. And also, if you could have a contingency for a Zoom overload, the people that want to dial in, it's my understanding that a Zoom account may only facilitate up to 100 guests. I could be wrong, but if you could have a plan for that.
We can clarify that, and I'll talk to Peter about what our options are with the Zoom. I'm not overly familiar. I also would like to make sure that I know our senator and representative have been involved with some communications with DCR, so that they're invited and given the opportunity to listen to our town folks and their constituents, as well as they have been involved. Leah, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, if I may, I was just wondering if the board had any feelings as to doing the town administrator's 6-month review before or after the election, just given that 2 of the 5 of us have worked with the town administrator for 6 months, and 2 of us are up for openings this in this election. I know when I had emailed Mitch that we had talked about pushing it till after town meeting, just because everything is so crazy. But I just wanted to get a little bit of feedback from the board, I guess, not necessarily set a definitive date yet, but see the thought process of that, because I think providing feedback, I felt like the 3-month review, we provided feedback, but we didn't really talk much about it. And then the 6-month, I would like to see a little bit more formal, but maybe after town meeting makes the most sense, however the election.
Well, excuse me, when the contract was structured, it was the 6-month is the more formal, the first formal evaluation that we do, I think, have to do publicly. And so I think we need to just check back what date that we need to do that by contractually, and we'll go from there. And as a worst case scenario, because we've been so overloaded with meetings and budget, if we had to do it after the election and town meeting, and obviously at least one of our board members isn't going to be on the board, we would have that review completed for that meeting, and that person's review would still be heard, and those folks would be invited back to participate and give that feedback so that the new members aren't stuck with reviewing somebody 3 weeks in.
No, I appreciate that opportunity for anybody, you know, kind of this current board to be able to provide that feedback, whether it happens before May 10th or after May 10th. So I appreciate that very much.
Jeff?
I concur with that. Going back to the other issue on the prison camp hearing, is there any way that we could set that date so that it could be publicly put out there? Because I know there's a lot of people, the petitioners, et cetera, who are hanging on there.
Yeah, look, I'm looking at it. I know that we have a busy schedule with town meeting and the election, but I also know that this is important. So I'm looking at Wednesday the 12th as a potential date. And that gives us enough time to advertise. I know that we're going to have a busy week that week, but I also think that gives enough time to make sure that we get the word out. And it is, the way I'm looking at it, probably the soonest we can do it without having to rush it and make sure it's done properly. Does anybody have any objections to that date? All right, so we'll set it. And then what time would you want to do, Jeff? Maybe 6 to keep in line with our normal meetings?
6 o'clock sounds reasonable.
Okay, so we'll set that for Wednesday the 12th if we're all in agreement. Again, I don't think we need to vote on that. It's just a scheduling matter. Lyndon?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I did reach out to Ron and to Nick regarding concerns about any events after the first of the year should the school budget pass and the override fail with drastic cuts in departments, that we should just make the public people aware of that there might be limitations on the ability for us to go forward with especially large events without the support. So I thought, and it's not as a tactic to force, you know, a vote against the school or for the override, but just people need to be aware that we'll have limited resources and it could have an effect on.
That's a good, you know, I think what maybe we can do then is have Ron send out a memo to the board chairs and committees, and particularly I'm thinking about the 4th of July committee, the 300th anniversary committee, with our PD staff potentially being limited or, you know, let's face it, decimated by cuts. There's going to have to be some conversations around what is tenable and what isn't, and how you pay for police detail.
I just want to be fair to them so they can plan accordingly.
Absolutely. And that's something that I think when Ron comes back from vacation, we can have him send a note to all of the department heads to schedule those events accordingly to do that.
Thank you.
All right. So then I guess, Leah, just as a follow-up, if we can clarify, Becky, when contractually, or somebody can clarify when we owe Ron that official review process, we can set that meeting at our next meeting and have that official process. And again, I'm not sure who's going to be chair at that point, but I think the intent is that everyone that's on this board now is going to be able to participate as part of that review process. And that's something that I would want to see happen. Okay. If there's nothing
Mitch,
further,
I've never been a part of that. So do we have like a specific outline? I know we had like a very brief outline, and I know Jeff had mentioned about input from employees and things like that. So are we gonna, I'd like to take a look at that and maybe look at whether we would want any revisions or.
yeah,
any
there's a
requirements.
template that we've adopted kind of as best practice that we've used over the last few years. I know Ron had some samples of templates as well, which are pretty standard for scoring a municipal review. And we can send a copy of those out to allow the members time to put something together. And Leah and Jeff, I know you probably remember Mike's review process where you had that official document. We responded to different criteria and came up with a scoring matrix. I would imagine that we would go through a similar process, if not the same exact process, in form with Ron's review at the 6-month mark. Okay, if there's nothing else from the board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Nichols?
Whitman seconds.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Stillings,
Stillings, aye.
Nichols,
Nichols, aye.
Whitman,
Whitman, aye.
and City, aye. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you all.